Hey guys, Stealth here, and welcome to Wargame. Today in Wargame we're following General Major Max, who's going to be doing some a bit unorthodox tactics on South Korea Highway to Seoul. Now what you can see is that this map of course has these zones, it has this very large open terrain that nobody ever uses instead of, well, unless you're going helo rushing maybe. And we have a land reinforcement zone for Fox and for Bravo. Now, he said in the description for the video, or for the replay, that most of the players generally tend to play for zones. He is not going to be one of those players. He is going here. Now, you could argue that this is not actually a strategic position, because it doesn't give you any income. Maybe not, but it deprives the enemy of getting in reinforcements. And if you can get that done, then taking the other zones, let's say Fox, Delta, Echo, and to some extent Gulf as well, because Gulf reinforcements can come in from this zone, it just depends on where you put them. If you can cut off this flow of reinforcements, that will allow the rest of your team to get through a bit easier. So how do you get there? Well, he has a plan. He's going to drop off some infantry initially. We have some Puma Pirates, we have a couple of Tiger Haps, we have a Gazelle Cannon. This is going to be his early strike force. His second force that's going to arrive is going to be a motorized group. Now note how all of these units, except for example, the Leclerc, are motorized. Meaning wheeled vehicles. They're fast. Fast is good for a position like this. Because note that they don't really have the luxury of taking roads. They need to go right across the field, making their way towards this position, which I'm not sure if the game considers a road or not. And then you can use this tree line for cover. Skynet is apparently not impressed with his choices, but it is going to provide a very interesting game, as we're going to see. The game type itself is a 4v4 conquest. As you can see, Skynet has already done quite a few ranked games as a Brigadier General. General Major Max is a corporal, so has also been dabbling in ranked a bit. As for other ranked players, we have Golden Sword and Stalin on the enemy team. Alright, so the thing with this tactic is that while he actually dedicates most of his force, if not all of his force, to taking this position, the other three players on his team are left to fend for this area. So you could see, for example, a 2v1 on any of these zones. Because normally you'd have 4 players on the front line per team, and now you have 3 versus 4. So this is going to be interesting. Alexandrite drops off a bunch of napalm immediately in the position in front of Foxtrot, so that this is going to be more difficult for Red to get into. And normally when you drop napalm on roads it's just a bit of an annoyance, but here it can actually hamper vehicles, because vehicles might be able to use this little ridge, but not all of them can. Of course, helicopters have no such issues and they just fly over. Talking of which, we have the Tigers, we have the Gazelles and a couple of Pumas all pushing through. And they are making good speed. Now the play that Max is making here is getting towards that reinforcement route before Red 4 has a chance to land a reinforcement unit or a command unit in the zone that actually enables the reinforcement route, so that by being there quickly you can get your forces to immediately ambush and hence side shot the enemy as they are coming in. You can see that they have now taken control of Foxtrot, but apparently they're still moving their infantry, I believe infantry CV around, and by doing so it's going to take them a bit more time to start calling in reinforcements. Gazelle Cannon moves forward, one Tiger Hap flies over as fast as possible while the other one holds back here. And the units that he's using are Legionnaires. He's not going for the Legionnaire 90, he likes the Legionnaires just as they are. 10 rounds a minute rate of fire. We have a 700 meter range, decent accuracy and 19 AP. Which should be plenty for when you want to shoot a tank in the side or in the rear. So he's dropping these guys off as fast as possible. In the meanwhile, we have the motorized push, which is making its way towards the north, pretty much along the lines of the edge of the map. And you can see that these guys are all still going at full speed, in so much as you have full speed along the edge of the map, and insofar as you are a motorized vehicle. But motorized off-road still does 90, 95. Yeah, especially the French have some really, really nice motorized vehicles. In the meanwhile, the enemy has brought in an Mi-26, which immediately gets shot down by the Tiger. Unfortunately, the Super Etendard that Max was fielding has been killed off, and we have further issues. A Ka-52 is now making its way forward, trying to kill off this Tiger. So we need to do something about that pretty quick. In the meanwhile, he also has his second Tiger here. This is another one that is pretty much being held in reserve. And this is not the only thing that Red is using to counter Blue's offensive here. He's flying in a Yak. Yak manages to kill off the reconnaissance unit. Tiger tries to return fire with a Mistral. The other Tiger, doing the same thing, also misses. Missile goes right into a bunch of flares. Second missile misses. Third missile actually hits the guy. This Tiger still has one missile left. So if he gets lucky, and he does, he can shoot down the Yak. At this point the Legionnaires are in position. They have taken up position along the edge of the road and are lying in ambush for anything to drive by and get a kill. Unfortunately the Tiger is now out of play. It has been taken out by the enemy helicopter. And Red thinks that they're safe and that they can bring in reinforcements. But this is not exactly true. Red, spawning reinforcements, gets immediately ambushed by the Legionnaires, which are wiping out infantry as fast as Red can spawn them in. And with the explosion of the vehicle, the infantry that is being brought in immediately gets killed off. Moreover, even tanks are being spawned in, but tanks tend to only have armor that is well enough on one end. And this means that... hang on, did they actually fire cluster munitions at the infantry? Maybe. The Legionnaires are now unfortunately out of range. But what they managed to do was delay and or kill quite a few of these vehicles. There's another one. Of course, this is when it gets annoying, because now we're looking at past Pragas, which are good against infantry, Sokols, TO-62s, OT M60PBs, more infantry. Fortunately, the rest of the force has now arrived. So we now have VAB VDAA AA guns, VABs, AMX-10RCs. We even have a Leclerc. The Leclerc, however, needs to be able to see targets before it can actually engage them, just like any unit. So he's been keeping it in reserve for a bit. In the meanwhile, we have more reinforcements coming in. More AMX-10RCs, because they're the fastest units that he can field, which also have a decent gun. He's moving a Crotal forward to back up the Roland that he has currently. And the Leclerc is perfectly working on shooting things in the side. There's another kill on a transport. The Leclerc takes quite a bit of fire from the recoilless rifles and takes some damage in the process. But with a high rate of fire of 12 rounds a minute, it is working on taking these things out. Now, this is not the only move that Blue is making. Would you look at this? Alexandrite has been able to spot and identify the command infantry, command vehicle, as well as the AT cluster munitions that they have standing by. The question is, can we kill it? And it looks like the answer is going to be yes, because we have a large airstrike coming in from Alexandrite. Now this is good news and this is bad news. The good news is we have a very good potential to kill off the hotel reinforcement zone, cutting off air spawn for the red team. The second bit of good news is that the other spawn is still being heavily contested, both by forces which are actually making their way towards the zone, and because of this flank that was opened by General Major Max. The bad news, we don't have enough players operating on, for example, the left, where unfortunately, I believe, Warpig 355 has left, and this means that General Major Max has now inherited these units and also needs to manage these guys. So he has his hands full. The airstrike is successful. Hotel has been neutralized, at least the command vehicle that we saw. But that's not the only command vehicle there. They have another one. So the Navy SEALs are now pushing forward, trying to spot the other command vehicle, or command infantry, or whatever command unit they have, so that hotel is going to be neutralized for good. In the meanwhile, General Major Max has to contend with a Twardy here that he has absolutely no way of killing, short of the Twardy making a terrible mistake and coming in so close that it can be taken out by either SBS or commandos. He's not that likely to make a mistake like that, not with a Twardy. I mean, you never know, but a Twardy, and yes, throw in a V-Horde to make matters worse, is going to pose quite a threat to the forces that he still has over here. In the meanwhile, on the on the right side, we have a quad stack of napalm tanks, and I don't think I've ever seen that put up a flame wall. But they just did, and they're doing a hell of a job doing that. I mean, look at the intensity of that fire. It's a beautiful sight as the fire was bursting out from the quad stack of TF-62s. Mirage 1 FICT or Mirage F1CT comes in, cluster bombing this position, trying to wipe out most, if not all, of these tanks. Unfortunately, not enough AT value on that means that all the tanks survive, albeit on lesser hit points. And it seems that most of his push has been defeated. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, because as he wrote in the description of his replay, my intention was not so much to win this fight, but to have the enemy dedicate a lot of forces. And take note of the fact that we have, for example, what is this, Wipe Hexe, as well as Golden Sword, operating with units. So we have two players dedicating their attention towards this, well, basically this non-zone, as well as trying to push on this area and or move forward towards Delta. All the while, Blue is keeping their own income up. They are getting a +1. And with, unfortunately, Alexandrite's TACOMs just outside of the zone, they could be getting +2. But Alexandrite is probably having his hands full operating, I think, air support towards the right flank, where we have further cluster bombs coming in, and this time they do wipe out all of the TO-62s. A couple of Puma Pirates coming in. These guys with their autocannons trying to get close enough to do some damage to these tanks. Unfortunately not really getting it. M84 reconnaissance tank goes down, but that's not the only thing that Red is losing here. They also lost a... what was that? T-55? Would be my bet. Yeah. T-50... is it? Never mind. They lost 2 more tanks, and the super heavy that they had over here was forced to retreat. In the meanwhile, I always keep an eye out for round circles on the map, because that means command units, and the Navy SEALs have spotted another command unit. An M1107, and the question is, can they get close enough to kill it themselves, or are they going to have to call in another airstrike? If they can neutralize this zone, then that neutralizes the air spawn. Unfortunately, this route is once again open, but is being heavily contested by Skynet, who has managed to get quite a few forces in. Unfortunately, hasn't been able to spot the command vehicle just yet, but the zone isn't that big, so they don't really have that much room to keep it at bay. Now, Navy SEALs have apparently done the jobs all by themselves, neutralizing the command vehicle. Actually, did they? No, they saw it coming. The command vehicle is still in place and is actually safe. They managed to move it away. And instead of trying to recapture their own fob, they're now actually trying to kill it, which is a bit of a curious choice there. Meanwhile, Alexandrite has captured Delta, so Blue for now has a +2. And Blue is making life hard on Red all the way through this zone. Unfortunately, Red, of course, can bring in reinforcements far faster than Blue can, because they have the reinforcement route much, much closer than Blue has theirs. Blue's reinforcements have to come down either this road and then scoot off the road and go through this one, or take the bridge, which tended to be a trap for the AI mechanics. Not all vehicles really knew how to maneuver along this bridge, and once they're done doing that, they can then take the road and head towards the north, but it's going to take them a lot more time than it will Red, so they're going to have to plan ahead a bit more. Now, note how through all this, Charlie Zone has not really seen that much action, as the Red 4 players were forced to focus on different areas. They were forced to focus on Foxtrot, on defending Foxtrot, on keeping this area clear. So the distraction that General Major Max put up there worked amazingly well. Whereas initially, when I saw that push going out, I was like, what the hell are you doing? And this is exactly the same thing that Skynet was thinking. But it did buy Skynet enough time to bring in his forces and make life pretty difficult on Red. A couple of AMX 30B2s coming in, taking out the T-55s as they're getting too close. Come on, guys. Oh, that just took a big hit from a T-80A. There's a kill. Jaeger's pushing forward, immediately taking fire from what seems to be more T-55s. A couple of T-55 recon tanks, real cheap stuff, but no less dangerous to infantry up close. And this is something that the Jaeger are definitely starting to notice. Further Jaeger are pushing forward, unfortunately taking suppressive fire from the T-55s and getting quite a few proletaries to contend with. He's retreating his martyrs, as over on the right we have another offensive going from General Major Max. He's now fielding Legionnaire 90. He also has another Leclerc operational. Gamma is pushing forward. Oh, beautiful side shot on the Leclerc there. That is very unfortunate. The Gamma is now challenged and killed off by the Tiger Had, but too little too late, as the Gammas have already done their damage. This offensive does not seem to be working out that well, but once again they've been able to retain the enemy attention on this zone, which is still a non-starter. It's just not something that is very valuable. On the left hand we can see helicopters moving around. The question is really, what do they intend to do with them and what are they filled with? It looks like the Mi-8 TVs seem to have a bit more veterancy, so a bit more dangerous units than the Mi-8T. We still, probably, at least I didn't see it get killed, have a super heavy, potentially even two super heavies on this end. The good news is that we know where the super heavies are. We know that they're somewhere inside this zone, so they're not going to pop up anywhere else. Not out of the blue like that. So Alexandrite is pushing in with a couple of scouts. And yes, they're not actual scouting vehicles, but they're being used as such. And they are also drawing in some fire. So now we know exactly where the closest units are. And this was infantry. Potentially a tank here or there. The right flank, still going strong. Although, actually, never mind, belay that, not going so strong at the moment. His forces have been wiped out yet again. So he's bringing in, once again, a Leclerc, once again, Puma Pirates with reinforcements. And he just keeps the pressure up on this side as much as possible. I'm going to switch it to neutral to see what Red has dedicated to this. Look at that, a triple stack of mortars, 2 long-range books, a Tunguska, 2 Shilkas, a T-80A, a Tor, a Vihor, infantry, a Sopel. Further infantry is being put forward. They're bringing in the triple stack of BMPTs, but these guys do not seem to be going south, but instead going towards the western side, where they are apparently quite close to infantry moving forward from the blue side, the blue team. So the amount of forces that Red is dedicating to this position is pretty high. It is getting pretty expensive for Red to keep pushing forces like this forward. Anyways, back to General Major Max. We have an air patrol coming in from blue, a couple of F-15C Eagles. Not exactly sure what he's trying to do, but it looks like he's just trying to score some helo kills here and there. Unfortunately, the Eagles are taking a lot of return fire. This is a move that I personally wouldn't go for, because Eagles are worth far, far more than a helicopter or two. Now, I know that this is not destruction, but therefore you could say, well, it's still a valid rule. You try to kill something that is worth more than the vehicle that you're trying to lose, or that you risk losing. On the left, or towards the middle actually. Skynet has been able to make quite a bit of progress, and they are now trying to push on the reinforcement route that's coming in from Hotel. So both reinforcement routes are still being threatened, and Red is really not in a position to keep pushing forward anywhere. The only place where they might be able to do it is on Charlie, with a couple of those helicopters. And yes, Blue does have the VABs. These are decent AA guns, they're not fantastic. They're pretty easy to kill. And other than that, they have the one Avenger, which is going to be a problem for the helicopters, provided that they get close enough. And HEGM can still kill a helicopter, or can still kill an Avenger before the Avenger gets too close. General Major Max, unrelenting, keeps putting forces forward. Unfortunately, Tunguska is not having that, and wipes out the Puma Pirates before they have the capacity to land their infantry. Leclerc is forced to retaliate, killing off the Tunguska, so that's another nice kill there. There's another one. That's not a Tunguska, but instead that was a Shilka that was killed off. Leclerc now forced to retreat because infantry is getting awful close. Further infantry being put forward, Legionnaire 90, or correction, Standard Legionnaires. Trying to get some support for this Leclerc, and they need to be quick about that, because if they're not, then you're going to wipe out another Super Heavy there. And once again, Red 4 is being forced to dedicate a lot of forces towards this push, which really isn't that sizable, or at least not anymore. But the amount of forces that it's been able to draw in is impressive. Now it looks like at this point we do have a push coming in from Gulf. They're putting up a smoke screen. Immediately General Major Max spawns reinforcements. Whether these guys are going to get here in time is very questionable. And what exactly Red is going to be pushing with is another question. We don't really know what they have here. We only know that they had a lot of helicopters there, a Super Heavy, maybe two, or they could have redirected the Super Heavies to now be fighting towards this end. At least White Russian here, or White RU, has a T-80 that's pushing forward, currently moving to retreat by the looks of it, keeping his frontal armor towards the enemy, and potentially linking up with a resupply unit to keep his unit intact. Skynet, once again on the offensive, unfortunately taking bombing run after bombing run, and he does not really have that much that he can field against that, so he's bringing in a couple of Rolands, trying to kill off some of these aircraft, because the amount of air power being thrown onto him is, well, pretty severe. Fortunately, they're getting closer to victory. They have 353 points out of the 500 that they need, whereas Red 4 only has 2. On the right, the push by General Major Max unfortunately has failed, and he is now actually being forced to retreat the units that he has over here, which are currently mortars. Further VABs are being raced forward to get against these T-55 AMVs. Oh, you may want to offload these guys right about now. Come on. Get him. Ooh, that was close. There we go. That's the T-55 done. Remarkably, his mortars have survived, which is rather surprising. Legionnaires pushing forward. These are Legion 90s against, once again, the guys that are all coming out of those M60 PBs. They are, I'd say, less dangerous than the M60 PB transports themselves. At least from what I've been able to ascertain from playing that side. The infantry is really not that good, at least not that infantry. The push by Skynet into Foxtrot unfortunately has yet again failed, but he's definitely keeping them busy. So long as they can keep this +2 lead going, they should be fine. The question is, can they? Because they are losing terrain here due to FJB 40s pushing forward. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the only unit of infantry. Alexandrite is running his Avenger right into the FJBs, which happily kill it off. And their command vehicle is not that far behind. The Rarden is actually quite close to the FJB, But of course the FJB could still take quite a bit of suppressive fire from the VAB VDAAs. And fortunately the reinforcements have now arrived, so that there's going to be a bit more infantry sitting between the command vehicle and the enemy infantry that is pushing forward. Oh, offload these guys right now. Oh no. Oh, this is going to hurt. That was a napalm bomb. Probably meant very well by Alexandrite. Unfortunately, engulfing the Sur-85 completely in flames. Same for the commandos. And a further bombing run comes in and wipes out a few more. Lots and lots of friendly fire incidents going on in Charlie at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if General Major Max was quite pissed off at that. On the right, once again General Major Max gaining terrain, now pushing into a Shilka with Legion 90s. So they're moving forward. The question is, do they have an answer to Mi-24Ps? Now take note that these guys are not too expensive, but once again this is 160 points. This could have been a couple of stacks of infantry. This could have been a super heavy. Instead, they're being forced to get these helicopters to try and counter what is being pushed forward from General Major Max's position. So, once again, General Major Max might be losing quite a few forces. Absolutely. But at the same time, he is keeping the enemy forces so damn busy. And he's dedicating so many resources, or he's having them dedicate so many resources to this position, they cannot field them anywhere else. Looks like on the left we have some mortar fire plunging in on these chasseurs. And at least they're holding on to the position for now, so that's all good and well, but there's not that much that red can do. Blue currently 467 points, 469 now. It looks like red is still trying to keep them at bay, but really at this point red doesn't have any choice but to defend, and blue doesn't even need to attack, because blue's position is so secure here at 477 that the game is going to be over in about 90 seconds. So the game is done for Red 4. Now, if this happens to your team, what could you do? Because you cannot simply ignore this position. You cannot simply say, oh well, I take my reinforcements from a hotel, because if you do that, then Foxtrot could get overwhelmed. And sometimes you call in units that might still try and come in from Foxtrot. Otherwise you're going to have to really micromanage your forces to come in from hotels, so you spawn for example there or there. But then the goal is still achieved. At least Max's goal. Because then units still require more micromanagement. So attention is still being diverted away from the front line, away from the actual fighting positions that count, towards your units being micromanaged here, or towards your units not coming in from Foxtrot. And if you had ignored this force for too long, and just spawned in your forces from hotel, then the Foxtrot position could be pushed upon from the right using the forces that are not actually stopping anything coming in from the Foxtrot reinforcement route. So there's, as far as I can see, not really a good way out of this position. Now General Major Max, as expected, lost more forces than he put in, but considering that the amount of forces that he drew in was much higher than the forces that he lost, I would say that this is actually a success for him. I would say that, yes, he didn't get positive, but the amount of forces that were able to actually get negated and did not go towards pushing on Skynet, Warpig or Alexandrite were worth it. But let me know what your thoughts are on that. How did you think Blue 4 played this game, and how could Red 4 have countered this offensive? What could they have done to negate that offensive that Blue had put forward close to their reinforcement route? What would you do in a position like that? Looking forward to seeing exactly how you think about that and what you would do to counter such a move. So let me know down in the comments. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. I'll be seeing you very soon for more Wargame videos.